She failed 5 times, and almost gave up. But what happened next will surprise you. In this video, you'll follow Lily's real English journey, from struggle to fluency, and step by step, you'll learn how to speak naturally, confidently, and fluently. Stay with me, because this could change your English forever. If you feel like English is still hard for you, then listen closely, because by the end of this story, not only will you know how to learn 50 new words naturally, but you'll also start to feel like English is finally becoming part of you, just like it became part of Lily, who once couldn't even say a full sentence without freezing, but now speaks with confidence and flow. And it all started the moment she changed her mindset from fear to curiosity, from, what if I make a mistake, to, what new word can I discover today? And in this new chapter of her journey, Lily decided to treat every single word as a tool, not a test. So every morning she would wake up and open her word diary, where she collected expressions like, wake up, brush teeth, make coffee, and instead of just reading them, she used them to talk herself through the day, saying out loud, I'm brushing my teeth now, I'm making coffee, and by doing that she practiced words like morning routine, toothbrush, mug, boiling, sleepy, fresh, clean, and slowly added words like prepare, focus, notebook, journal, and schedule as she planned her day in English too, saying, today I need to write in my journal, check my schedule, and focus on my tasks. And when she felt lazy, she used the word discipline, and reminded herself that fluency comes from habits, not luck. So she kept going, and started adding emotional words like excited, nervous, peaceful, frustrated, and confident to describe her mood while learning, and she began to recognize patterns like, I feel excited when I understand something new, or, I get frustrated when I forget, and she noticed that describing feelings helped her connect emotionally with English. Then she moved to action verbs like clean, cook, organize, study, review, practice, and added time phrases like after lunch, before dinner, at night, and made sentences like, I study vocabulary after lunch, or, I practice pronunciation at night, and to help her remember better, she would record herself using words like record, repeat, shadow, compare, correct, and improve. Shadowing became her secret weapon, where she repeated what she heard with the same rhythm and emotion, and when she got stuck on new words, she started using words like guess, understand, search, find out, and even made questions for herself like, what does it mean? Or, how can I use this in real life? And the biggest shift happened when she started connecting her life to English using visual memory. When learning the word recipe, she actually cooked something. When learning exercise, she moved her body. And while learning relax, she lit a candle and played calm music. So the word was no longer just a word, it became a real part of her life. And this immersive method brought words like calm, focus, energy, sleep, dream, goal, and progress into her daily thinking. And by the end of just 1 week, Lily had added 50 new words into her real memory. Not by force, but by living them, and now, she looked into the camera, smiled, and said, if I can do it, so can you, because English is not just something to study, it's something to live. And in my next video, I'll share with you my favorite tips to make your own word diary and build fluency from the inside out. And just when Lily thought she had mastered the rhythm of learning, something inside her shifted. A deeper curiosity sparked, like an unexplored forest waiting behind a single word. And she whispered to herself, what else can I unlock with English? That's when she created what she called her Active Language Lab, a daily space where she didn't just learn, she lived English. She picked one key word each morning, words like assume, consider, reflect, or analyze, and built her day around them. If the word was assume, she'd write down 10 different sentences like, don't assume she knows, or people often assume the worst. Then she'd act out these lines, performing them in front of a mirror with emotion, tone, and posture. When she reached words like collaborate, evaluate, and inquire, she role-played professional scenarios, pretending to be in business meetings, tech interviews, or customer service calls. And this wasn't just imagination, it was language immersion at its rawest. Lily began identifying which words were academic like interpret, justify, clarify, and which were casual like chill, hang out, grab, and drop by, separating formal from informal like a scientist of fluency. She even turned daily routines into vocabulary boosters. While brushing her teeth, she repeated words like maintain, prevent, improve, tying them to self-care habits. During cooking, she focused on verbs like boil, chop, blend, serve, and narrated her process like a cooking show host. She would say, now I'm blending the ingredients because I want a smooth texture, learning phrases like, in order to, as a result, and, so that. These transitions helped her speak longer sentences, building her flow, not just her words. When she encountered advanced vocabulary like complicated, essential, obstacle, challenge, achievement, or process, she didn't just memorize them, she tied each to a personal story. For example, she called her fear of public speaking a major obstacle, and her first full English presentation an achievement. Every difficult moment became a lesson, and every lesson had a keyword. On Fridays, she'd do a weekly review using mind maps, where she grouped words by themes, like emotion, excited, nervous, hopeful, decision-making, decide, choose, hesitate, or action, organize, solve, try. And when she practiced listening, she didn't just hear, she dissected. She played short podcast clips and wrote down every connector word. However, meanwhile, unless, realizing that fluency is 30% vocabulary and 70% transition and tone. She used the shadowing technique again, but this time, with emotion-rich sentences like, I tried and failed, but I never gave up. Her voice carried the weight of those words until her intonation became natural. When she tackled pronunciation, she broke words into syllables, interest ng, comprehend, responsibly, clapping each beat like music. To reinforce memory, she labeled her entire room with sticky notes, mirror, curtain, drawer, lamp, notebook, and said aloud, I'm opening the drawer, or, this notebook is for my goals. Her life had become a life dictionary. She joined online communities and practiced typing in chat rooms using phrases like, could you explain that again? What do you mean? Or, let me clarify. When she didn't know a word, she used descriptions instead, calling an oven a hot cooking box, until someone corrected her. Mistakes became her favorite teacher. By the time she added manage, respond, prefer, attend, develop, and expect into her daily talk, she felt like she wasn't just learning words, she was building a second self. A self who could express fear, joy, ambition, and love in English. And as she stood in front of the same mirror where it all began, Lily smiled and said, this is not just a language journey, this is a transformation. Then, looking into the camera, she whispered with deep clarity, in the next video, I'll share with you the exact speaking routines and daily rituals that made this possible, step by step. See you soon. If you're still here, it means you're ready for more. And so was Lily, because the deeper she went into English, the more doors opened for her that she never imagined before. And in this chapter, we'll dive into how she mastered key expressions, improved her listening skills, and began speaking naturally using real-life English, one word at a time, one conversation at a time, starting with her realizing the power of phrases like, "I'm on my way, that makes sense, let's catch up," and "no worries," which she would whisper to herself during walks, practicing them until they became part of her natural rhythm. And then she tackled listening practice in a new way. Instead of just watching shows, she used active listening, where she'd pause after every line, repeat what she heard, and try to mimic the intonation, stress, and emotion. And in doing so, she picked up tricky but useful words like literally, actually, basically, exactly, eventually, and obviously, all of, which she began using in her thoughts first, and then in conversations. And one day she made a goal to practice 10 phrases every day and use them in pretend dialogues, like, "Do you have a minute? It slipped my mind," or "Can I get back to you?" And she'd imagine talking to her future coworkers or friends, which made her confidence grow. And during this journey, she kept a diary where she would write down phrases like, "As far as I know, I'm not sure, but to be honest," and "I guess so," and then rewrite the same diary entry but only using new words. And that simple trick alone made her use words like schedule, appointment, deadline, reminder, priority, task, and meeting in her daily planning. And then, something powerful happened. She recorded herself speaking English every night, using her phone, starting with just 1 minute. And in her recordings she would try to include words like feedback, opinion, suggestion, advice, decision, and discussion. And with time, her voice didn't shake anymore. It sounded clear, focused, even persuasive. And that's when she started challenging herself with short speeches on topics like how to stay motivated, why learning is powerful, and what I've learned this week. And each time she'd include expressions like, "from my point of view, it turns out," in other words, and as a matter of fact. And she noticed how her speech flowed better, smoother, with fewer pauses, and more control. And in the middle of all this growth, she found that learning English wasn't just about study, it was about living it. So she began making small English-only zones in her house, a kitchen corner, where she labeled things like refrigerator, microwave, cutlery, pantry, and dishwasher, and a morning wall, where she posted phrases like rise and shine, let's get going, and coffee first, all of which made her daily life more immersive. And when she felt stuck or tired, she'd simply tell herself, "You're doing better than yesterday," and keep going. And one evening, while watching a documentary, she realized she could now understand not just the words, but the meaning behind the words, the tone, the feeling, and she smiled, because this time, English wasn't just a subject, it was her second skin.